The warehouse is open. Tales from the Warehouse Volume 40, a milestone of sorts. Welcome to the 2024-2025 MeiGray NHL game-worn jersey program. The teams this year: Philadelphia, Washington, Columbus, New Jersey, and Nashville. Geoff Spaid, NHL game-worn program director, nice enough to join us for this one. And Jeff, I'm always excited to do this episode because it means the season is here. The summertime desert of, enjoying beach stuff and family vacations and reading about free agent moves and wondering what guys are going to look like in their new uniforms and all that stuff. It's come to a close. Final moves being made as rosters get tinkered. We've already had a couple of regular season games cross the pond, but it's back. MeiGray's back with several teams' top quality players on a lot of these ball clubs, puck clubs, if you will. Big clubs is what I meant to say. Jeff, welcome back to the podcast. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Yeah, always glad to be back. Glad to talk with you about the start of the season. As you said, summer's over, school's back in session, and my wife's a teacher at the local high school. And I was talking to her earlier, and she said there was a kidnapping at the high school, and it was pretty scary stuff. But thankfully, she got him up in time for his next class, so he got on going. Didn't like that one, Scott?
No, it's actually fantastic. And I may run that by my 10th grader at dinner, and then he'll say, "Oh, look, it's the live version of the Progressive commercials. Welcome home, Dad." So we'll see what we can do with that. At any rate, this has been going on for quite some time, and I mean that in the best possible way. The MeiGray NHL game-worn jersey program is a stalwart in the industry, much respected. It has evolved over the years. Talk to me a little bit about its tweaking and evolution through the years.
Yeah, the NHL program's developed from humble beginnings to where it is now. I mean, you have to go back to MeiGray's founding in the 90s when you didn't have sites like Getty or Twitter, I guess X now. I have to get used to that still. Instagram or all these high-quality photos and video. You had faxes. You had low-quality, grainy negatives that were turned into everything and put in newspapers. And so from the beginning, MeiGray founded it working with the teams and doing photo matching as we can and as we could. But as time and technology have progressed, it's gotten a lot easier and a lot better overall. We're keeping higher tabs on what's coming in and going out. And that's made very simple by, photo matching. And also our teams are great. All of our equipment managers are fantastic. And so you can go back to the 2002-03 program, and it's going to be leagues different than the 2023-24 program. And that's not anything that we're changing the game. I mean, we're always adapting, always looking to raise the bar for authentication and raise the bar for our teams and program. But that's just the nature of technology getting better, and we're adapting as we go. And so we're continuing to look for, and I'm continuing to look for, as the program director, ways to engage the collector and increase our level of authenticity and raise the bar.
Those are just some of the ways, and there are many, many that makes the MeiGray NHL game-worn program and the authentication portion of it stick out. Stick out for collectors, stick out for the hobby, stand out, if you will. Take me more, and as much as you can, inside of that communication portion with the teams. You said that they're great. Even if you can just take us, because we always love experiential stuff, behind the wall of, you come into the office and there's emails. There's emails from equipment. Hey, we're doing this and we're doing this and we're keeping you abreast. I mean, you are like, at times, aside from an authenticator, an air traffic controller with, oh, so-and-so's making a switch, or there's a call up here and they're going to need this and they're going to need this. And let me read the tags on the, on the lower hem, because we've got players coming abroad because we've, had a spate of injuries and stuff like that. So talk to me a little bit more about that communication with the clubs.
Yeah, of course. So MeiGray has always operated under the philosophy, and we continue to operate under the philosophy that we're kind of flies on the wall. We're not bossing around equipment managers. We're not bossing around teams how to get things done. We're there to make their lives easier. So it depends on the team. I mean, when you have Alexander Ovechkin on the Washington Capitals, it's a lot different dealing with a very high Hall of Fame first ballot quality player. Hopefully he's going to catch Gretzky here this year or next year. We all can hope that. It's different when you look at another team like New Jersey or Columbus or Nashville. Every equipment manager has their own quirks, I'll call them. Some of them love reporting tags as we go. Those guys run a clean room. They really try and keep up to date on everything, and it does make life easy. And there's other guys where we just go back and forth and keep tabs on a few different jerseys, keep tabs on a few different guys. But for the most part, all the equipment managers and I, and also our sales team as well, we discuss, we talk, we set dates. For those who are wondering, we'll set the set dates in advance. So I'll contact all the equipment managers at the beginning of the season, and we'll talk about, oh, here's a good run of home games, and then you have a 5-game road trip. So why don't, on that last home game, we plan on ending our first home set? So like red set 1, blue set 1, whatever. And then here's the end of a road trip that lines up well with another home trip. Let's put that as the white set 1. And what I always say to them, and we have had to do it multiple times, is these dates are always flexible. And that goes back into, we're just trying to make their life easier. So we set dates with them. We say it's flexible. If you have guys getting injured, you have to carry jerseys over. The customizer, I know there's the whole Fanatics change from Adidas now. And so, as most people can imagine, supply chain issues happen. So it is, a lot of factors are going into this current season about what's going to be able to get done, what's realistic. And I know that all the equipment managers, they're going to help me as I'm going to help them navigate these rough waters of the season. And I'm sure we're going to come out fine on the other side, and collectors are going to be thrilled with the pieces that get added to their collections and even get offered. So I think that kind of takes it through a little bit about what my job looks like in the day in and out, but I didn't get too into specifics. I don't want to make people feel like that I'm blasting a team or a rep. There's nothing like that. They're all great. They're all great.
Not at all. And again, communication leading to transparency for the collector and the hobby is obviously key. So as we head into the 24-25 season, we've got Philadelphia, we've got Washington, we've got Columbus, we've got the Devils and the Nashville Predators. Which players' sweaters from the MeiGray program teams do you anticipate? And again, I'm giving you a couple of roulette chips, and you're like, let me put one on this guy or this guy. And obviously, you already mentioned Ovechkin and the Chase in Washington, but there are a lot of new faces there. There are a ton of new faces in Nashville. New Jersey is coming with a lot of hype, and rightfully so. Philadelphia has stars on the horizon. Columbus obviously having suffered a horrific tragedy, but there are certainly players, and the tomorrow is looking bright despite the horrific loss of a teammate, a brother, a husband, and a friend in Mr. Gaudreau.
Yeah. First off, that was a horrible tragedy with Matthew and Johnny. It's just should never happened, and it's the choice to drink and drive. And so, as always, as a plug, don't drink and drive. If you don't feel like you can drive, you had a couple drinks, call a cab, get an Uber. It's super simple. It's super easy. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's going to keep everyone else safe, and it's going to keep you safe. So that's just my plug to start. I think it's important to mention. But as we look at Columbus, we'll start there because they are alphabetically first. They still have an exciting young roster. I know they've struggled the past few years. I know that they've been looking to get to those top couple picks, but some of those top couple picks are finally arriving, and they're playing. Obviously, I think the exciting guy is Adam Fantilli still. He got injured at the end of the year. He's still a young talent. I think he could have been in the call to consideration last year had he not had that unfortunate injury that kept him out at the end of the year. I also think you got exciting guys like Marchenko. Marchenko, great goal scorer, got a good head on his shoulders. He's a fun young kid. Reminds me a little bit of, I would call him almost an Ovechkin and Kuznetsov combination. As I'm a Caps fan, I like to look at those guys. The good sides of Kuznetsov. The joking, fun guy.
It's still pretty big comp.
Yeah.
It's, okay.
It is. I really like Marchenko. I think he's a great goal scorer. I think he's got high hopes and a high future in Columbus. And I think he's a guy I would look at if I were a Columbus fan to acquire because, I think one day we could be talking about how Marchenko's setting Columbus franchise records. And speaking of that, Boone Jenner. I know Boone Jenner feels like he's been there forever, but that's because he's setting franchise records on his own. He's got the most games played with Columbus. He's looking to sneak into top categories like goals, assists, points. I mean, Boone Jenner, he's got the captaincy. He gets great wear. He's all-around quality guy. And I think Boone Jenner's, if you haven't gotten a Boone Jenner, if you've been on the fence, I think this is the year to get one. I think he's a great guy. You will not regret having a Boone Jenner. As I've seen and authenticated all these jerseys, I can tell you, if I wanted a jersey with good wear from Columbus, it's Boone Jenner.
Mr. Jenner, yes.
Mr. Jenner, of course. Nashville. They're my next alphabetical. And boy, oh boy, is Nashville exciting this year. I think Nashville, out of all the teams that we have, I think they got the best over the offseason. You can make arguments for New Jersey, but I think Nashville did the best moves. They went out and picked up those veteran talents in Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. I think those two right there, those are exciting. How often do you get talents like that in the offseason, and they're going to an exciting market like Nashville? You have UC Saros re-signed for however many years he re-signed for. I don't even remember anymore. And then you have Roman Josi, who is I would call him Mr. Nashville Predator. Gray Richards might disagree with me, but I think Roman Josi is the best captain option for that team, but also the best Predator to collect. He is pushing for every record in the book. Mm-hmm. And so I think those four guys, I could keep going with Nashville.
Perennial trophy nominee. You know that he's going to be the consistent picture of hockey playing excellence.
Oh, yeah.
So there's not a wrong answer if you want to get in line for one of his. And we'll talk about getting on the request list in a little bit.
We'll talk about getting on the request list. And also we'll circle back to value, because obviously, before I continue, talking about guys like Steven Stamkos and Roman Josi, they're going to be a lot different price than a Alexander Carrier. But we'll circle back to that and why those differences matter. But we're going to continue with New Jersey. This one's a little bit of a curveball. I think if I had to put down chips, first off, Markstrom. Fantastic save in that first game of the Global Series. Might even be save of the year at the end of the year. And it happened in the first game. Fantastic stuff. I think he's going to be exciting. I think people are going to want Markstrom sweaters because they're goalie sweaters. They're going to get great wear. Jack Hughes, always an exciting talent. I could go on, but I won't bore you with Jack Hughes details. Let's get a Jack Hughes before it's too late. You won't regret it. The final one might surprise you. Thomas Tatar. He always sells well. If you've been thinking about a Tatar, I know he left for a few years and came back. Now he's back. If you've wanted one, do not wait. Thomas Tatar will go. And if you were on the fence, well, it's too late. He's gone. Philadelphia. Philadelphia's got a good spread. You know, you got guys like Travis Konechny. I think Sean Couturier is a great pickup. He's been there for years, but now he's got the captaincy. And who doesn't love adding a captaincy to the collection? And then we got to talk about him. Michkov finally came over. Super hyped, super exciting prospect. I think he is going to be the guy in Philly. I'm bummed the Capitals didn't get him. So I am very excited to see what Michkov can do. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope only for the best for him. And then we'll close out with Washington. I think there's three guys I'm eyeing up. Obviously, first off, Alexander Ovechkin. He's chasing Gretzky. He's only 42 away from passing Gretzky. I know Ovechkin had an off year last year at the beginning of the year, but it's Alexander Ovechkin. I can't bet against him. He could very easily close out this year with high 40 goals, and you know what? At the end of the year, we're talking about the greatest goal scorer in the NHL history, Alex Ovechkin. Not when's he going to pass Gretzky? It was, where were you when he passed Gretzky? Mm-hmm. But just because he's the talking point, a lot of the talking point around Washington and honestly around the league, doesn't mean there's guys to not focus on Washington. Like John Carlson, I think he's an unsung hero. He does not get the love he deserves. I think he deserves a lot more admiration. And then Charlie Lindgren. I think Charlie Lindgren made a name for himself last year. I was looking at the stats earlier because part of the authentication process is making sure we keep track of guys' milestones, where they are, how we can not only offer a better product, but also offer more authentication and saying, you know, this is the jersey a guy wore when he did X or did Y. Charlie Lindgren is kind of sneaking up in the Caps rankings of goaltenders. You wouldn't think it, that Charlie Lindgren, out of all the goalies that the Capitals have kind of run through the past few years, that Charlie Lindgren's the one that's getting up there, but he is. And so I think if he can repeat the performance he had last year, I think we're going to be going into next year talking about, man, I really wish I got a Charlie Lindgren jersey when I could have. So those are all my picks. I offered up 3 per team. I think 4 for Nashville, but who's count?
It's Volume 40, Tales from the Warehouse, talking to NHL Game 1 Program Director for MeiGray, our friend Geoff Spaid. Thanks for coming aboard. The teams in the program this year: Philadelphia, Washington, Columbus, New Jersey, Nashville. More on them in a second. Just sort of a brief refresher as far as the request list goes. And if you follow MeiGray on social media, and why wouldn't you? Step 1 is pretty easy. sales@meigray.com. It'll get you in contact with somebody from behind the wall that's right there in the warehouse. They'll record your request, then they'll get back to you. But when you make the request, Geoff, there's always advice. I love this. Be specific, yet broad. I would like blank, but if you say, all right, I want Alexander Ovechkin, that sort of pigeonholes you to just Alex Ovechkin. Maybe there are 2 or 3 caps that you want. Maybe it's not necessary that you're going with white. Maybe you are okay with red. The more broad of your request, the better off that you will be in catching it. Again, wider net catches more fish.
Yeah,
you want
and if
one lure, go for it.
If I can sneak in there real quick. So I love this one. I used to, for those who don't know, I used to be the social media guy, the marketing guy, and we came up with this when I first started on how to talk about the request list. And Casey, our social media guy, our marketing guy, he's done a fantastic job continuing it. But the example I'll give is Washington's wearing their exciting reverse retro. They're bringing it back as a special alternate. If you email in and you said, I want an alternate Washington Capitals jersey from this season, that's very broad but not specific. Whereas if, Scott, you emailed in and said, I really want Trevor Van Riemsdyk's third. Well, obviously, we know that Scott wants Trevor Van Riemsdyk, so we're going to try and make everyone happy. And so if you emailed in with just saying you wanted a third, but you really wanted Trevor Van Riemsdyk, well, you didn't tell us, and so we can't read your mind. So you want to be broad enough saying that, like, I want a third from the Washington Capitals. That's broad. Yet specific would be, I want Trevor Van Riemsdyk, I want Jacob Chychrun, I want Sonny Milano, I want Pierre-Luc Dubois. That's broad in the number of players, that's broad in the style you want, but it's specific in the players you want. Because at the end of the day, the request list, we're trying to offer collectors jerseys they want. And at the end of the day, we want to make as many collectors happy as possible. So you give us more information, you give us more insight into what you want, the more often than not, we're going to be able to service not only you, but other collectors much better, because everyone's going to get a slice of something they want. Or, well, I shouldn't say everyone is. We're going to try and make it work. It doesn't always work, because there are times where 15 people want Trevor Van Riemsdyk. He's just my example here. And we only get 8 Trevor Van Riemsdyks in a year, for example, let's say. Well, 7 people aren't going to get offered Trevor Van Riemsdyk in that situation. So that might lead into your next point, Scott. I don't remember what's next, but go ahead.
No, there's a lot. Again, you talked about requesting a specific player, specific style, but also leaving yourself with some options. The other key is, and this sort of, it's common sense, but it also will help out the collector. Around the time of the trade deadline, or even long before, maybe coming into the season, somebody is disgruntled and wants to get paid. And he is playing, he's like, all right, I'm coming to camp. Obviously, Swayman is no longer a good example because he got paid by the Boston Bruins. But let's say Swayman didn't get paid by the Boston Bruins, and you're thinking, my team needs a goalie and has space and has prospects and could make this happen. Maybe he winds up here. You can request, you could send in a request for anybody at any time, even if it's like in your head, so maybe Swayman's going to come to the Caps, or, and again, a bad example, they have 2 young goaltenders, whatever. But, and you type in, you go, by the way, if Swayman ever comes to Washington, please put me first on the list. You know what? You're first on the list. And even if it never happens, maybe it will. You never know what's going to happen at the trade deadline. You're like, holy shnikes, this is my dream to see my favorite player from a non-program team suddenly wind up with Philadelphia or Columbus, New Jersey, or Nashville, or in D.C. Future jersey styles and future trades, be damned. That's all part of the request game. And then again, just send in your email, sales@meigray.com. The broader the list, the better it is for you as a collector. And if there's a specific style, like a reverse retro, like red, like white, whatever. And remember, any player at any time. Worst that can happen is, well, we'll do our best. Not a guarantee, but you're giving sales@meigray.com and the great sales team at MeiGray a chance to figure it out.
Yeah, you are. And that's really what it comes down to is giving us a chance. And hey, sometimes it's dreams. You can guess where a player's going to go, and sometimes it's nightmares. Like for all my Pennsylvania brethren out there, watching, let's say, maybe down the line, Sidney Crosby ends up in Philadelphia. I don't know how you'd feel about that.
Right.
But you could always shoot your shot and send Joe Manley, our Flyers rep, a email saying, if Sidney Crosby ever ends up in Philadelphia, I want to be offered a Crosby jersey. So if one last plug, if you are listening to this as it releases, it may not be in the future, but right now you can go to MeiGray.com, and in our news section lower on the site, there is a announcement button. It's under our news item announcing the 24-25 game-worn jersey authentication program. In there is going to tell you all the sales reps. You can reach them directly, but also, as you said, Scott, the sales mailbox will get you where you need to go. Either way.
Most importantly, Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 40. We got work to do, Jeff. Philadelphia, Washington, Columbus, New Jersey, and Nashville. Geoff Spaid is here. Jeff, we talked about which players, 3 from each of the program teams that excite you. There's a lot of stuff coming up. We've already mentioned the chase, but aside from that, there are going to be milestone games. There are going to be special events. There's debuts upcoming, and we'll get to a couple of other rookies that may be off the radar. Fantilli, a pseudo rookie, but Michkov, you mentioned. There's a lot of young everywhere. At any rate, talk to me a little bit about milestone games and special stuff upcoming that may be or should be on collectors' radar.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton. There is a lot of it, and I'm going to look at a list a little bit. So we have a lot of milestones like Luke Schenn of the Nashville Predators. That might be a guy some of my Flyers fans out there will recognize, the Schenn brothers. He's coming up on his 1,000th game, as is Eric Johnson over in Philadelphia. So we got a couple 1,000th games. We have the Columbus Stadium Series coming up. That's in March 1st of 2025. I think that's the right date. But either way, we have
this season and you'll be covered.
Yeah, it's the 2025 Stadium Series. So obviously it is upcoming. It is going to be exciting to see. And I love Stadium Series styles. I think they're great. But we're going to just have to wait and see what happens with that. People don't love them sometimes. I really love them. So we also have, as you said, the Great Chase in Washington. You've got other stuff, such as, I know there's a lot of guys in Nashville chasing scoring, goals, points records. Look at Ryan O'Reilly. He's only a handful of points and goals and assists away from milestones across the board. You've got Steven Stamkos is really close to 600 goals. You have over in Philly, you have guys like Travis Sanheim's climbing his way up the defenseman point ladder. You have all sorts of guys, all sorts of milestones. And I probably could just sit here and list them off and we'd fill the next 50 minutes. I don't need to do that. But what you need to know is what you can do for all of those people who are wondering. You can look up the upcoming statistics, whether it's through the NHL site or you can look through fan sites and whatnot and find what guys are coming up on what milestones. Who's hitting their 300th goal soon? Who's hitting their 400th goal soon? And I'll tell you what, we're keeping an eye on that too. We're making sure we're tracking that as well, because once again, like I said, that's all part of authentication. If we can tell you as the collector that this is the jersey that John Carlson scored his 150th goal in, well, then that's an important detail to know. Like that's something we strive to do. 1,000 games, 1,000 points. You know, there's big milestones and there's smaller ones, but in my mind, they all matter. They all stand out, and especially when you get to debuts. Every team does debuts differently, but it's important to keep track because you never know when the next guy who debuts is going to be the next star. And so, as you said, we got a couple rookies coming up that are very exciting. Obviously, Michkov in Philly, he is just going to be the talk of the league, I think, this year. I would be shocked if he isn't. I want him to be good, but as a Capitals fan, I don't want him to be that good just yet. But I always root for the guys. I want them to be good. I want them to have successful careers. So Michkov in Philadelphia, he'll be exciting to watch. Seamus Casey, in New Jersey. With Luke Hughes being out with an injury, I mean, Casey's stepping in, and he's doing a good job. He scored his first goal at the Global Series, the second game. Yeah, second game he had his first goal. He's looked good so far. I know there's some buzz around him in Jersey. And then some of my Predators fans reached out to me, my Predators fan friends. Tanner Molendijk down in Nashville. He is an exciting name to some of those guys. He is supposed to be very good. So I know there's some buzz around him. I personally am a Zachary Leroux fan. Sad to see him get sent down. But these guys who get sent down, like Zachary Leroux, you've got today they sent down Ivan Miroshnichenko in Washington along with Andrew Cristall. That's the day we're recording it. We're going to date ourselves a little bit here.
But fret not. There's still options. Yeah. There's still a lot of guys on the runway. It's the NHL.
Exactly.
They grab, and guys come up and you're like, how do I get one? Sales@MeiGray.com. Contact the rep and get in line to expand your collection with somebody that you can watch. I mean, I again, as a patron of the company and as somebody who's lucky enough to moderate this podcast, I'm a big fan of it's your jersey. He's just wearing it. I'm a huge fan of that recent tagline.
Oh, yeah.
And nothing encapsulates the, MeiGray experience. And you can talk a little bit more about that with, there's a lot. There's so much hype around this time of year, so much promise. I mean, there have been many people who are far better with the spoken word and the written word than I am at the start of the baseball season, where they're like, the smell of the fresh cut grass, the move from Florida back to your team, and it's start of baseball season and the boys of summer and all this. Geoff, there's a lot on your mind. Again, aside from being director of the Game Worn program, you're still a fan. You're still a collector. So you're also digging what the program teams are bringing to the table. I mean, you can just tell. Let's go a little bit behind the curtain, and we've done it already previously in this pod, but just a little bit more. Can you tell me about sort of the process for obtaining and authenticating, kind of just a quick step-by-step? You don't have to go too deep, and I know, we're not giving away trade secrets, but transparency is a key to the authentication.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're curious on some of the sausage making, as Scott here would say, getting behind the scenes, you can go back and listen to some of our other episodes on, let's say, the Stadium Series or Winter Classic.
Some of my fun stories that you were able to. It's like, we're over there snapping pictures, and look, there's us on Getty Images because we were there at a practice and waving and, just trying not to get in the way. And that's also, you mentioned it before, MeiGray doesn't have their finger on the scale. This is, you're out of the way. You're just, you're the fly on the wall.
Yeah.
You're the piece of art over here that has nothing to do with anything. Okay, you guys done with this? Thanks. Let's chart it. Let's get it in. And then let's get it out to the customers, to the clients, to the collectors.
Exactly. And like you said, fly on the wall. I remember from the 2023 Stadium Series when we went down to Carolina, Patrick Mindy and I, we were in the hall after the game. Yep. We were in the hallway after the game, and we're talking with some of the video guys who were literally stuck in a closet watching the game and like doing different feeds and checking on camera feed and whatnot. We're just sitting there chatting, and then, Tom Wilson comes through talking to the trainer right past my ear. And I just stand there, and I don't say a word. So, I mean, there are moments like that, but getting back on topic, I'll reroute us a little bit. Obtaining it depends on what it is. If it's a Stadium Series, Winter Classic, we're usually there obtaining stuff in person, not everything. Usually sets get sent in or delivered, or for our local teams, we'll pick them up, like Philly and New Jersey. They'll get delivered in bulk. That makes the equipment managers' lives easier. Like I said, first and foremost, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep it easy on them. And equipment managers don't like, all my red set one's done. White set one's going to finish up here soon. Some of the guys might say, I'm going to get rid of red set one now. Some of the guys might say, I want to just send it all out at once instead of rotating and sending you one package, the next package. That's fine. I work with all those guys. Sometimes it's stuff like debuts, or in the case of our high-profile players or 1,000th games and whatnot, debut. Like I said, that kind of stuff we'll get pretty quickly. I work with the equipment managers to get that turned around, because at the end of the day, that's stuff that can easily get lost. If you have, let's say, Joe Schmo's debuting in the NHL, and Joe Schmo has 3 jerseys for his NHL debut, well, it's very easy that they could accidentally misplace Joe Schmo's and shove it somewhere else. and now all of a sudden we don't know where Joe Schmo's jersey is. So I'm always working with the equipment managers, trying to find ways to make their life easier, but also get things out of their hair so that they don't get misplaced and lost. Because the worst thing that could happen, in my mind, is a collector really wants Joe Schmo's debut, and we contact them, they get that pre-order, they're excited for Joe Schmo's debut, and then they misplaced. The California Golden Seals misplaced it.
Mm-hmm.
And so where'd Joe Schmo's debut go? We don't know. That's not what we want to have happen. So that's really what we strive for. And so it just depends on the team, depends on the time of year, and depends on what it is. It always rotates, always changes, and always fluctuates.
When stuff, unboxing videos are still so big on YouTube, and whether you buy sneakers or stereo equipment, I'm dating myself. You know what I mean? Or cards and other collectibles. When the stuff comes to you that is shipped, if you can share sort of that experience, large cardboard boxes is, and you say it's in bulk. Is it like, oh yeah, here, look at this. It's, is it like the Amazon driver just comes up to MeiGray, is like, all right, we got Columbus. Thanks. Enjoy. Have a good day.
I am going to hurt a lot of people's feelings here. And I know I am going to destroy many collectors here, because I have seen people rip into people about how they ship stuff, how they pack stuff. Why didn't you take more care not folding the crest? At the end of the day, these guys are equipment managers. I have gotten stuff in all forms of shipments that would make the most heinous Facebook posts about, can you believe how this collector shipped this to me? I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to tell you what teams. I'm going to give you nightmares at night. Whoever you are listening, just know these guys want to get the stuff to us, make their lives easier, and we make our lives and your life easier. So I'm not going to go into detail how it comes.
No,
just
but
know. Just know.
Say that, so they want it out of their hair and out of. Yep. Suffice to say, and we've heard this for years. It's sort of the running joke from collectors, like, you go to a Game Worn Expo and you're wearing your sweater, and someone says, "Why would you do that?" And the stock answer is, "What happened on the ice is way worse than what's going to happen here today. I'm not wearing it to paint my house. I'm not wearing it to tie-dye Easter eggs. I'm not wearing it to make Sunday gravy with my Nona and get tomato and garlic and smelling like a basil factory," which is a lovely smell, by the way, and everyone should make gravy with Nona. But you're not doing any of that in your Fantilli jacket sweater. No. You're wearing it amongst other museum-quality pieces. So when this stuff comes in the box, what happened to it on the ice when Wilson was tugging at Heischer or this guy, and then, water splatter or ice spray or tape marks across from a slash? What they do on the ice is arguably, again, you're not running through a car wash. You're not going on Nickelodeon and getting slimed. You're not doing any of the above. So when they send it to you, the equipment managers, in a box, in a case, in a bag, in a this, and a that.
Yeah, boxes, cases, bags.
It's way better off than what happened in the arena.
The funniest one, I won't say a name, I won't say a team. I'll just let you imagine which jersey it was. Whatever your mind's eye tells you. The weirdest one I got that made me laugh, that I thought a collector would lose their mind over, was the jersey was wrapped in cellophane. And I kid you not, it was about yay tight. It was the size of a pot.
It was one of the vacuum pack infomercials.
It was quite literally a vacuum pack. It was about a foot long and a size of a hockey puck round. And that was a full jersey. And you know what? That's sometimes how they come. And if you think that was your team, I'll let you think it was your team. I'm not going to tell you. I want you to have some nightmares about it. But just know that when it gets to us at MeiGray, I always take the utmost care in making sure that these jerseys, however they showed up, is however they go out. If they showed up with tears and repairs, I don't make those tears bigger. I don't accentuate. I clear my desk of all Sharpies, markers, pens, salsa, chips, buffalo chicken dip. It all goes. I make sure it's a clean surface. We take care of it, and you get the jersey as is. Whether or not it has blood on it, I have a jersey with blood on it. Some people find that really cool. Other people don't. But it came to me with blood on it. It went out with blood on it. So we always take care of how it shows up. And the equipment managers, I let them dictate their room. I let them dictate how they pack it up. As long as it makes it to us, that's all I ask.
Philadelphia, Washington, Columbus, New Jersey, and the Nashville Predators. There you go. Not in alphabetical order, which I know is driving Mr. Spaid crazy.
Oh, it's
Geoff
fine.
Spaid,
It's
NHL
fine.
Game On Program Director, joining us on Volume 40 of Tales from the Warehouse. Welcome to the 2024-2025 MeiGray NHL Game Worn Jersey program. Geoff, any tidbits of advice for new collectors looking to step in, dip their toe in the proverbial waters for this upcoming season as far as, hey, I'm interested. How do I do this? What do I do? Any sort of, I was new once. We were all new once. What to share with somebody new at this?
So what I would say first and foremost is go slow. A lot of people, myself included, I've seen it happen. They get in and they think it's the coolest thing ever, and they buy so much stuff. They get a lot of quantity, not a lot of quality. And what I see more often than not with these collectors is within 6, 12 months, maybe 2 years, what they had been collecting is no longer their collection. They've had to let go pieces, whether they got themselves in too much debt, whether they ended up acquiring so much stuff that they just thought was cool out of the gate, and now they're like, this really isn't that cool. I mean, my advice to a new collector is take it slow. Game-worn collecting is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Just because you want a player now, or you want 10 players now, doesn't mean those guys aren't going to be around for a while. And it doesn't mean that we won't have some of these jerseys in stock for years to come. For example, I know Jacob Braun in Washington. He's one of my favorite players. And he went to Detroit in a trade. He went down to St. Louis. He's been back on the Caps with a PTO. But we still have Jacob Braun in stock. So my advice to newer collectors is, for a majority of the guys, this is the not necessarily, there's an exception. It's not the rule. But a majority of guys and players, take your time. There'll be stock. There'll be inventory. Once you get about 4 or 5 years down the line, maybe a little earlier now that the hobby's grown a lot more, that's when you might want to start thinking about jumping in faster than you might at the beginning. But I'd say for the new collector, take your time. If you're looking to get a jersey this year, go with one. Go with one you like, see how you like it, and see how it sits. Because we all know mail day feeling's the best feeling. Opening it up and seeing the wear and whatnot. But you can very easily start chasing that high. Right. And if you start chasing that high, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. And then you're going to end up leaving the hobby a lot sooner than someone who took it slow, paced themselves, and only looked to get a jersey a year or a jersey a season. And you know what? If you have the funds and the passion and the desire to go buy 7 jerseys from set 1, be my guest. I'm not going to tell you no. But from what I've seen from collectors and what I've seen from people is take it slow, take it easy, and decide what you really like. Do you like weird styles? Do you like a specific player? Do you only want one of a specific player? I know people who have collections where once they get a player, they're not going to get another jersey for that player. I know collections where once they get one jersey of a player, they have to get 12 more of a jersey from that player. Even if they're the same style, figure out what kind of collector you are. Figure out what you like, what you want. And I think if you take time to think about what you want, I think you're going to be a lot happier collecting. You're going to have a lot more fun collecting. And at the end of the day, you're not going to have as many financial troubles collecting because it is an expensive hobby. I'm not going to lie there. So it's important to approach it with the utmost diligence and respect.
Right. It can be an expensive hobby. And along those lines, it's a sort of a slippery slope question. Hobby is meant to be enjoyed. People get into this for different reasons. I want to get into it, and again, I'm just, person A wants to get into it because they want to capture memories and, every sweater tells a story. And I was at this game on this night and hey, so-and-so who's not a frontline player may have scored a goal. I'd like that sweater. I was there with my daughter. I was there with my son. I was there with my dad. Others are getting into the hobby for, again, variety of reasons. I'd like to get into it because, perhaps it's value and I'd like to make sure that it holds. As NHL Game On Program Director, what do you think collectors should do? Where should they target, if you will, to ensure? And again, past performance is not an indicator of future results. It's a hard question to ask, but it is a question that's brought up. Hey, I'd like to buy $100 sweater, and I'd like to make sure that it remains $100. Wouldn't we all? There's
Yep.
no guarantee. You don't know who,
Mm-hmm.
God forbid, will get injured in his second game, despite all
Mm-hmm.
the promise in the world. And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, but I mean, is there a way to purchase responsibly or wisely? And you've already
Yeah.
given out great advice. Go slow. Just,
Yeah.
try to not say to yourself, I'd like one from every team in the league. It's great if you can. It's awesome. There's
Mm-hmm.
no judgment. I embrace this
Hey.
lovely fabric, game-worn, smelly circus. It's a
It
great
is.
hobby. But just be careful. Like we all say,
Mm-hmm.
you do you. Just
Mm-hmm.
make sure you can do you. Is there
Yep.
some advice, Jeff, as far as insuring? And again, here's what I can insure, that I just tied my shoes before the podcast started. Aside from that,
Yeah.
I don't get into the insuring
Mm-hmm.
business.
Yeah. I think there's two ways that I see the hobby, and I think it's important to see. I don't like a lot of gray area. I think gray area makes it hard to decide something. I think the way I look at the hobby is there's two sides to it. There is the personal enjoyment and what it means to me, and there's the investing side. I mean, we can't talk about game worn without talking about the money side.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to decide what matters more to you. So, for example, I'll use pieces from my own collection. I have a Jacob Vrana jersey that if you looked at it today and I told you what I paid for it, you would call me crazy because financially it's not worth it. However, the memory and emotion I have attached to that jersey of going down and with a couple friends driving down from college to DC to watch the Capitals beat the Penguins. I got to see, it's a Jacob Vrana jersey, so I got to see Jacob score. I got to experience this great time with friends. And to me, that's what matters. I have jerseys from when I took my wife to her first game. They're higher end jerseys. It's a Tom Wilson and a TJ Oshie. So higher end Capitals guys. But to me, you couldn't offer me $1 million to sell those things. Those things are sentimental. They mean a lot to me. And if that's the way you're looking at the hobby, it doesn't matter if it's a $100 jersey. It doesn't matter if it's a $1,000 jersey. What matters is the sentimentality around it. Now, if you're looking at it from an investing standpoint, let's shift our focus. First off, I think quality over quantity is the way to go. I think that's the way you should look at it. Instead of buying 5 $4.95 jerseys, buy one $24.95 jersey. Buy the quality, the thing that's going to last. Because if you're buying lower end products hoping that they only lose $50 here and gain $50 here, well, as the old adage goes, scared money don't make money. If you want to buy the best value and buy the best investments, and mind you, I want to put this caveat up front. You could buy a player for $10,000 and tomorrow it could come out that they're a horrible person. They've done all these heinous things and that value is going to drop to zero or close. It never really dropped to zero, but drop close to zero. So really, first off, I don't think this is really where you should be putting your money if you want to invest. Go to the S&P 500, go to Wall Street.
Right.
But if you're looking to put some extra cash in and you want to ensure an investment and you want to ensure you're not going to lose money, or at least in the outliers, when the guy comes out that he is horrible and that he's done all these things, for the most part, I would recommend buying higher end players who have proven themselves. So for some of our teams, like I said, Nashville, Roman Josi, he has proven himself. He's a good guy, quality guy. He's got trophies. He's got nominations. He doesn't have a Stanley Cup, but he's got the history there. You want a jersey that I believe would hold value. It's Roman Josi. You go to Washington. I think Tom Wilson. We're not even going to talk about Ovi. Ovi's in his own league. I don't even want to talk about Ovi. Tom Wilson, John Carlson. I think those are two guys that tend to be underappreciated right now, and I think down the line they're going to be a lot more appreciated. I think John Carlson historically has been underappreciated by the fan base, and I think when you get 10 years down the line when he's gone, everyone's going to look back and be like, man, John Carlson was a great defenseman. You have these guys across the league, or you have things where, like, let's look at Jack Hughes. He's a great upcoming star. And you know what? You might be sitting there right now thinking, is Jack Hughes, I have the money, I could make the moves, I could sell a few things, and I could afford a Jack Hughes. Do I want to do that right now? Well, I'm not calling Jack Hughes the next Ovechkin. I'm not doing that. I'm not calling him the next Crosby, McKinnon, whatever. But you can go back. If you talk to collectors and ask them, how much did you pay for an Ovechkin jersey back in 2008, 2009, 2010? It was a couple grand. you're going to be a lot happier buying something that has value behind a player who's a superstar early, before the value spikes, before people get in. Because if you're going to try and time the market right, if you're going to try and time the value right, you're going to miss the train, and you're going to end up overpaying. And you're going to end up in a position where you're unhappy with your purchase. And once again, this is where I see a lot of people, they go out and buy all these expensive jerseys because they had to have them. And now all of a sudden they're like, well, I want the value back. And they try and sell them, and now they have to discount them. So my final advice is, if you're looking at it as a financial investment, don't get scared. Be in it for the long haul. All hobbies go through ups and downs. I love Magic the Gathering card game, collectible card game. Some of you may know it. Some of you may recognize it. But it's gone through its ups and downs. It had a really bear market for a lot of years, a couple years ago, where everything was just dirt cheap. But now, part of that market, the new stuff is like exploding, but the old vintage stuff, it's going nowhere. Don't be scared. If you buy a game-worn jersey now and it goes up $1,000, right? If you bought a vintage jersey and it hasn't moved at all, okay.
Also great, right?
Also great. Scared money don't make money. If you're looking at this from a financial aspect, if that's your main motivator in this hobby, you have to look at it from what's the value, what's the quality, and you have to be willing to hold those jerseys, hold those investments, hold those pieces for years. Because until the market dries up, until that guy's name is in the Hockey Hall of Fame or up in the rafters, or just remembered as an all-around great player for specific moments, then you're missing the boat. You're playing the wrong game, and I would recommend you consider moving more into the sentimental side of the hobby, because I think that's where I enjoy more, being in the sentimental side, but I do myself move into that investing side every once in a while. But I really think the game-worn hobby as a whole, this is my final advice for you, is more fun when you act as the sentimental side than the investing side. So I know I went a lot more in the investing side, but that's because I want to caution people that it's very easy to get wrapped up, and it's very easy to start obsessing over how many dollars you can get back out of something than how important something is to you. And so that's kind of my advice to new collectors, and even seasoned collectors, how I view the hobby and what I think of it.
Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 40. Geoff Spaid, NHL game-worn program director for MeiGray, joins us this year. Philadelphia, the Caps, the Blue Jackets, the Devils, and the Predators are all on board as we say welcome NHL season and welcome to the 2024-2025 MeiGray NHL game-worn jersey program. Geoff, you mentioned some pretty big names. Any particular higher profile sweaters that have come through the MeiGray NHL program that have sold recently that you'd like to shed a little bit of light on? You know, I mean, so you talked about Wilson and Oshie taking the spotlight on Ovi. There's a guy who's worthy of conversation because while he has provided a lot of fantastic recent memories and will be a Hall of Famer for sure, he's sort of at an interesting sweater crossroads, if you will, and that's Nicklas Backstrom, number 19. And he and Oshie, as far as the Caps, again, a team that's part of the MeiGray program. These are two guys that are, have been placed and have long-term IR, and you're like, as a collector, chances are I'm not going to be seeing these ever again. If they pop up, they may be at a certain price point, and that may also have people go, why is this? He's not playing anymore. It's kind of like, look at what's happened. Look what he's done over the course of his career, whether on the international and National Hockey League stage, or for Backstrom, winning a cup and being Ovi's right-hand man and providing a great many assists to a gent who perhaps by the end of the season will be the all-time leading goal scorer in league history. So you talked a lot about Oshie, but what about number 19 in the sweater pantheon as we go?
Yeah, and this is where, kind of circling back to that that whole philosophy of getting things. If you're a new collector and let's say you want a Nicklas Backstrom jersey, this is a great example, Scott. Backstrom's on LTIR. There's a reasonable chance that Backstrom never plays another NHL game. He might, but there's a reasonable chance he never will. So then it becomes the question of where can you get it? And I know on MeiGray, at least last I looked, we still had one, maybe two Backstrom jerseys. We may not anymore. I haven't done my research, done my homework on that part. But
Check
now,
and keep checking is the
yeah,
moral of the story,
yes.
by the way. If you go and there's nothing, you never know, because
Mhm.
collectors do have them.
Yeah,
MeiGray gets them when they come in, but if Backstrom's not
yeah,
playing, then there won't be any new stock. But he's an interesting study
yes.
in the current climate.
It goes back to the same thing I talked about with, I think some of these guys are undervalued, and I think some of these guys are underappreciated. And I think Backstrom, when you have Ovechkin, when you have this guy who's chasing records, I mean, you can go back and look at the data. Backstrom was one of the best, if not the best, playmaker for some good chunks of years. Like, he was fantastic, but he played next to a superstar, a one in a million kind of player, a unicorn. And when you play next to a unicorn as a superstar, you don't look like a superstar all the time. And so I think for a guy like that, and you can look at a lot of teams, you can look at a lot of players. Like I can look at New Jersey, and I think Jesper Bratt's finally getting the love he deserves. I think Nico Hischier gets the love he deserves. It's starting to get there. Because Jack Hughes, he's the spotlight.
Right.
But like, when you see these teams, and I'll go back to Backstrom for you, when you see these guys who aren't as appreciated, I personally like collecting those guys' jerseys. I think that's a great area to move in. I own a couple Backstroms. I own a couple Oshis because I think these guys are great players. I think they're great reputation with the fans. I really loved watching them. Every time I watch them, I had great memories around them. And so I want to collect them. And yeah, we're at this weird crossroads where you can name a bunch of different players in the league, but their jerseys are drying up. And so there's the secondary market, or something else you said is we'll get stuff on consignment. So if you have a Backstrom jersey, or you have let's go back a long time, and let's say like Ole Kolzig, you have, let's go back and say, you have a Patrice Bergeron, a Zdeno Chara. You can reach out to us and put those jerseys on consignment. And that's where we're going to re-authenticate. We're going to make sure all the work's good. Not that it isn't, but sometimes we find out new details that make a jersey even better. And that's going to put more money back in your pocket as the collector, as the original owner and seller of this jersey. But also as the collector, like if you know you really want a Zdeno Chara, you really want a Nicklas Backstrom, but we have none in stock, you can contact us. There's many different veins we can go through to try and find you those jerseys. That is part of our business with MeiGray, is finding jerseys you want. So if you really wanted, let's say, Nicklas Backstrom jersey from 2015-16, a specific game, you can email us. We know relatively, not all the time, but we can kind of trace where that jersey went. And we can work with you to try and acquire a Backstrom or a specific jersey. Now, obviously, you're not going to be paying 2015-16 prices, but we're going to help you in trying to locate these things. And yeah, sometimes it gets expensive. That's what buying on the secondary market does. That's why I say scared money don't make money. If you want a jersey of a player now and you know they're popular, get it. If you have the funds, if you have the financial capability, and you're willing to put that up front, get it. Because sooner or later, they're all gone. And like I said, you can go on our site, and like I talked about Vrana, he's one of my favorite players, but we still have Vrana jerseys. I love Oshie. I love Backstrom. There's almost none on there. Braden Holtby. I love Braden Holtby. There's like none on MeiGray. So that's what I mean. As a new collector, as experienced collector, wherever you're at, if you want the jersey and you have the capability, don't wait. Because the worst thing you can do is wait and say, I'll get that on the summer sale. Once again, Joe Schmo. Joe Schmo's $2,500. Well, when Joe Schmo drops to $1,500, I'll buy them. That's the same thing. Like if you're selling a Backstrom for $1,000 or less, call me. Call me tomorrow. I'd buy it.
Several, right?
I'll buy several at that price.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's easy to sit there and say like, oh, I'd buy 10 Backstroms at $1,000. Yeah, I think most people would, but you're not going to find them for that. And so you, as a collector, you have to be willing to make the moves that not only make you happy, because I think that's the more important part here. That's what I'm going to focus on, because like I said, you want to invest money, you want to make money, go play the S&P 500, go play the stock market, go have fun there. Leave us to our sweaty jerseys. That's really what a hobby's about. but I think we'd be fools to not talk about the financial side and the financial implications. But let's circle back. One, I think you kind of mentioned in it, like high profile stuff that came through. Yeah, I mean, OV is just a classic example. I could go through every OV that's come in the last year. We've had stuff come in, like rookie OVs come through our doors. And as the NHL program director, I authenticate stuff from the NHL program. So if you send in an OV from 056, I authenticate it. I'm the one who's working on it more times than not. So I get to see a lot of cool stuff. I mean, you saw some of the stuff, and as collectors hopefully saw too. I mean, we get other stuff in, like Babe Ruth jerseys, Michael Jordan's, like really cool, iconic pieces of sports history. But from the NHL program, I've always said, and I truly believe, that every jersey is unique. Every jersey tells a story. And whether it's Alexander Ovechkin or Alexander Carrier, I think every jersey is deserving of the same level of authenticity, same level of authentication, and the same level of care. And that's what I want to bring to the table. And that's what I bring to the table every day as the NHL program director, is that regardless of what price point you're spending, regardless of what you like, we're taking care of you. We're making sure it is what it is. And it's your jersey. He's just wearing it for now, you know? So there's a lot of high end stuff. I could go on for hours. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see what this year brings. I think there's some good milestones. I'm excited to see the wear, like I said, of guys like Roman Josi, John Carlson, Martin Faravari. I'm excited to see how Jack Hughes plays out, what his jerseys end up looking like, what crazy highlights he's going to have, because he's going to have highlights. Adam Fantilli, Miroshnichenko, if he gets called up.
When he comes back up, and
when he comes back, Michkov. I'm so excited to see where these guys end up. And, you know, when we talk in a year, if you see me in Expo, you can be like, what's it like to get all these jerseys? And I'll say it smells like a locker room. That's really first and foremost. But it is really a unique privilege and honor to be able to see, handle, and authenticate a lot of high-end stuff that I know people are going to cherish for years. And whether or not they sell it down the line or give it to their kids, who give it to their kids, who give it to their kids, or it makes its way back to the players. I mean, it's just an honor and a privilege to get to see these cool jerseys and get to be a part of a chain, part of history that will hopefully long outlive me.
And part of that privilege and part of that honor is to maintain the transparency and the trust with the collectors and the client base and the hobby overall, which MeiGray continues to do. This year's program teams: Philadelphia, Washington, Columbus, New Jersey, and Nashville. NHL Game Worn Program Director Geoff Spaid was our guest today for Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 40, a welcome to the 2024-25 MeiGray NHL Game Worn Jersey Program. For Geoff, I'm Scott. Until next time, the warehouse is closed.